Okay, good evening, parents, and thank you for joining us this evening for this Year 10 webinar where we're going to discuss a little about assessment grading and the Yellis tests. My name's Steve Rudall. I'm Director of Middle School here at West Island. Joining us tonight, we've also got James Donald, who's the head of Year 10, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. And leading this presentation is going to be Mike Williams, who's Vice Principal in charge of the middle school and takes the lead on assessment and grading. So enough from me, over to Mike. If you have any questions during the course of this, please type them into the Q&A box. James and I will be working away in the background, answering your questions, and we'll speak to you at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks, James. And James might not be able to hear at the end because congratulations to James. He's a father for the third time in a couple of weeks ago. So he's got a full household at the moment. So he might not be able to be with us at the end, but maybe. But certainly, yeah, put your questions in the Q&A as we go through. We have got quite a few questions that you've sent in when you signed up for the webinar. And I'll try and cover those through the webinar and maybe tackle a few at the end. Okay, so we got quite a lot to get through. Hopefully, I'm going to try and do it in half an hour. And let's see if the tech goes correct. I'm going to share my screen with you. Hopefully, that all works. Okay, so what we're going to go through today is the Yellis test, which your children did September time. We got the results back and posted them to you. Yellis means Year 11 Information System because it's information for it when your students are in Year 11 doing their GCSEs. Going to talk about chances charts and predictors. Well, you can read the rest of it then. And we should get through all of that in about half an hour. First of all, I'll go through the timeline for Year 10 and 11 in terms of our parent consultations and how they fit in with the mock exams and the final exams. So we're now in October there. We're talking about chances charts and we're looking at subject grades, which are going on and should be populated at the moment or this week for you to have a look in. And then we got parents consultations in December and June, and then we'll invite you in early next year around about this time for an options afternoon where you can talk about your children's options for post-16. Consultations again after mock exam results, and then final the GCSE exams. So there's also BTEC assessments, but there's no final exam in the BTEC assessments as well. So the Yellis test, which you've looked at the results, just this slide just shows you the coverage of Yellis throughout the world, really. It's a British-based system, but most or a lot of UK-based, UK international schools also use the chem system because it specializes in predicting towards GCSEs, A level, and now over the past few years to IB diploma as well. So what do we use it for? We use it for measuring, diagnostic measuring students' ability in, especially in literacy and numeracy, on the test called vocab and maths. We use it to find out what we think students can achieve in the exams, or part of the information that we use, and provides predicted grades, which I'll talk about. And then at the end, when your students or your children have done the exams, we use it in school to look at our performance as a school, what we call value-added reports. Did we put on more value than the average school was? And happily, all the time, in fact, the answer is yes, we do quite well on the value-added reports. So they use as a baseline there. So we don't ever report these Yellis grades to universities or outside school or to other schools. We only ever use it internally to help your children progress in their learning. And teachers don't base grades in their subjects based on any of these Yellis scores. Again, they're only used as a guideline. Why is it such a good test? Well, it's adaptive. I'll go through that in the next slide. It measures developed potential. Now, developed potential, the word develop means that they've developed these kind of skills to learn as they've gone through school. So the potential is how well can you do, for example, in your final exams. So you can continue to develop potential. For example, one of these things we're looking at is vocabulary, the developed vocabulary your children have got. And as we all know, you can continue to develop your vocabulary skills all the way through school. But these tests measure the developed ability against peers. So everyone's going to progress in their vocabulary, everyone's going to progress in their maths. But if your child does some extra reading or more challenging reading, it's likely their vocabulary will develop further. Why vocabulary? Why not some other part of English or reading skills or something? Because over 35 years or nearly 40 years now, Chem have refined these tests, and they find that the most reliable indicator for performance towards the GCSE and IB exams, the most reliable indicator or two indicators are vocab and maths, or the numeracy ability, because all when you're writing a report, for example, or writing an essay in a subject, you need a large vocabulary, and the better vocabulary you use words correctly, then you're likely to score more marks. So I keep coming back to this. Reading and vocabulary are very, very important in learning, as is numeracy. So I talked about adaptive. Now, if you think about a normal paper test, everyone gets the same questions. But in an adaptive test, when a student gets a question correct, the questions get harder. I'll show you that in a minute. Get them correct again, they get even harder and even harder, until you get to a level where the student finds the question too hard and they start getting them wrong. And then the score or the algorithm behind this program will converge on a score which it thinks it's a pretty reliable indicator of your child's developed ability. So this is why a computer adaptive test is much better than just a paper-based test. And also, the computer's clever. It will tell you the range it thinks your child is in. So it maybe give you 110 plus or minus 5, for example. So between 105 and 115. So the other areas, apart from vocab and maths, in the Yellis test, it's patterns, spatial awareness. There's a bit of logic within there as well. So we're going to do a bit of audience participation here. So I'm going to go through 3 parts of the test, the vocab, maths, and the patterns. I'm going to give you an easy question, a medium question, and a hard question. Let's see if you can get the questions right. So I think behind the scenes, we got VJ, who's going to prepare. Have a look at the question there. Have a think about it before you answer it. And VJ is going to provide a quiz or a poll. Is that coming up, VJ? Oh, okay. I can see it now. So you should be able to see the answer once you've answered it, if you got it right or wrong. I'll give you a few seconds. And VJ, can we reveal the answer? Or do people get answer? Oh, I've got the question again now. I can see the question. VJ, is the answer's there? Okay, it's just giving me the correct answer is crab. So well done to everyone who got crab as the correct answer. Next question. So the questions start to get harder. So this is, if you really know vocabulary, then there's a nuance in the vocabulary. So gingerly. So you can see the 4 words there. This is a medium difficulty question. Which one of those 4 words would be closest matched to gingerly? Violently, cautiously, angrily, or quickly? Okay, BJ, if you go to the answer. The answer is cautiously. When I did this last year, I could see how many people answered it correctly, but I can't see that at the moment. So I presume you're getting them right. So it gets harder and harder. So you get those 2 right, it gets a bit harder. Peerless, which one's it closest to? So play within your family groups so you can get it right. Okay. Incomparable. This one, I must admit, when I first saw this, I had no clue what sinecure means, or even if it's called sinecure, it might be sinecure, probably a sinecure. And previous years, people have got this right, but as I say, I can't see who's got it right or wrong this year. Okay, is in fact, the answer is an easy job. So on to some maths questions. Easy maths question. Okay, Vij. Okay, 2/3. 10% of 7,900. I think it's still on the easy end, hopefully, for most people. Okay. Answer 790. Next question. It's starting to get a little bit harder, but you still should be there, I think, for most of you. What's the angle Y? Okay. Okay, I don't know if you remember back to school, but 180 degrees in a triangle, 35 degrees being the answer. Fraction work. Okay, answer being a quarter. Starting to get harder now. So functions. So if m is 0, q to the 0 is 1. Says work out the value of p. So fm is 2, q to the m is 1, then p must be 2. So this is without calculators, all done without calculators. And it's more to do with maths skills. So your fluency in maths, not necessarily normal problems that you have, but just how good are you with numbers? And this is more to do with order of magnitude, I suppose. So you divide 15 by 3, get 5, 45 divided by 3, 15. So 515, yeah, but it's 1,000 times that. So 5,150. Now, I'm probably not going to, these questions, actually, if you want to look back at them, I will share with you tomorrow this slide deck and also this video. So you really want to, you can try them again. I don't think most of you will be able to get this one done in the time I'm going to allot to it. But if anyone did get the answer, which is 500, then congratulations. I'm not going to go through it. So that was the maths problem. See how they got harder. And here's some pattern problems, spatial awareness. So especially for students who have got an eye for design or science or good at looking at graphs and charts and seeing information that isn't written or in numerical form, and maybe in pictorial or graphical form or tabular form. This is testing out whether the visual memory of students. So there's the mirror image there. A lot of people can do this instantly, but some people take quite a long time and can't do it. Rotation of 90 degrees. Looks like some kind of bird-ish. Through 90 degrees. We've got the question up here. Clockwise. It'll be this one down here. Matching barcodes and this visual memory. And this is quite important as well if you're doing exams, that you've remembered the question. Well, you go and write down the question rather than continually keep looking back. Can you hold the question? Can you hold information in your visual memory? So the ones that match on the right-hand side. Oh, sorry, I'm down there. Okay, so those are three sections. And once we've got the results from the three sections, each one of those three sections is marked out of maximum 150, the average being 100. And this is, we can split them into 4 different groups. The top 25% we call group A, the next 25% group B, and so on. Okay, these are called quartiles or 25%. So the middle 50%, and this is the average UK student, it's based on the average UK student. So the middle 50% there score between 90 and 110. In West Island School, our average is around about 110, 108, 110, around about that score. So we're very lucky as teachers in West Island School. The ability of our students is a lot higher than the average UK student. Yeah, so not only do we work hard, we actually start with students who are high ability to start with. So into percentiles, so 50 percentile would mean that 50% of students have a lower score than you. So if you've got 100, that means you're in the 50 percentile, 50% of students got a lower score than you. If you're in the 90th percentile, that means you've got a score better than 90% of students. So that's what the percentiles mean. 99th percentile means you're in the top 1%, really. So when you go through, what I've sent you through by mail is these IPRs, and there's a guide to interpreting IPRs there. We're going to send this link out to you tomorrow. But also, Steve, if you're around there, can you, I think you've got this presentation, if you can put the link into the chat, that would also be useful if you could do that. And this will, as well as me going through a bit of it now, it will give you something to look at and actually analyze your child's individual pupil records using the IPRs. It's actually written for the Midias test, but it's pretty much similar to the Yellis test. So don't worry, it says Midias on it. So the important thing is, especially for vocab and maths, literacy and numeracy, is your child pretty similar for both literacy and numeracy? So what do I mean by pretty similar? You can see these 2 points here, and they've got uncertainty bars above and below. Because I said this student here, for example, the maths ability is somewhere between 90 and probably 92 and 108. We know it's there. So do the bars overlap? And if they overlap, that your child is pretty similar in literacy and numeracy. That's what we find in most students. If you have a gap, then you have found something there which is going to limit potential. It's a limiting factor in your child's progress. So I'll show you some IPRs and have a think about what kind of students this would be. So you can see here's an IPR for a student, which will be the average UK student. So you would see around about 100 for all scores. The overall score, by the way, comes from a combination of vocab and maths. It's not an average. It's called a ranked average. So if you've got high in vocab and maths, the overall score will actually be even higher. So don't think of it as an average. It's just a combination of vocab and maths score. Average UK student, this is kind of the average West Island student, around about 110, 108, 112 in all areas. That's absolutely fine, nice and balanced. Highly able student there is in the 99th percentile overall score there. We have a lot of students like this. And these are the ones we can really do something about, because here, for example, you've got a high math score and a low vocab score. So the limiting factor in progress there is going to be vocab. Now, my only advice for vocab is, as I said before, it's reading. And invariably, when I talk to students with this type of profile, I say, how do you read? And they just don't read. And so they're not picking up proper academic vocab. They may be picking up vocab from talking to their friends or seeing whatever they're seeing on TV or YouTube or whatever, but they're not actually reading challenging vocab to learn new words. And then we've all been there reading books, and we're really looking at a word going, actually, I'm not sure I know what that means. So if you're on your Kindle, you click on it, or you look it up, or you ask somebody else what that word means. And it takes you a few times to read it in different contexts before you really understand what that word means. And that happens over and over again as you read. So if you're not reading, you're not picking up the nuance in the vocabulary, which is very important. So my advice to you, if you have got a child with a profile like this, is to read more challenging text where you do introduce more words, and your vocab will expand, and then you'll be able to use that vocab in answering assignment questions. Same with the maths. Obviously, if the maths score is a lot lower, that's the limiting factor. And you'll get, in this case, somebody with a high vocab who maybe reads a lot, but doesn't really like maths and is not doing a lot of maths. That is going to be what holds you up. Remember that these scores are average for the whole cohort. So for this student, they would be behind in maths compared to their vocab ability. So they really should spend some more time working on their maths. Okay, after you've looked at the IPRs, we also sent some chances charts. Now, these are quite misunderstood by a lot of people in the community. They are not saying what your child will get in the exam. They're not making really, per se, a prediction what they get in the exam. What it is, it's just data. What it does, it takes the overall score from your child. I've put one example here, 109, and then takes all the students who have scored 109 in history, this Yellis test over the years, all students who scored 109 and then went on to do the English language exam. What did they come out with? So 37% of students came out with a B. That's all it's saying. It's comparing your score to the historical record of other students with that score. Now, you're not the same as other students. You've got different abilities in different subjects. For example, languages is going to be quite important what your background is or what your ethnicity is. If you're how well you're going to do at Chinese, for example, it can't really judge this from a vocab and math score. There's some things which are more important. Artistic ability, it's doubtful whether your vocab and maths is that going to predict your artistic score. But we can still provide data to say students who got this Yellis score went on to score this in their visual arts exam. Whether we pay any notice to that grade, it's up to us, really. It's just data. It's useful if you want to use it. And we find students, it tells us for individual students, this score here, it's about 2/3 of students will score either this grade or the one either side. So that's not very accurate. But once you get lots of subjects together for an individual student, or we get a cohort of students together, then the data becomes quite powerful. So if you don't want to pay much attention to this baseline ability grade, then it's okay, it's fine. It's just a piece of data to guide you. So when you go into Wisdom, you will see a grade summary of for your child, and you'll see this is starting to be populated. It will be more populated than it is for this child at the moment because I did this end of last week, and we have come to the end of what we call a feedback cycle, which I'll go through in a minute. So this is just to talk about what you'll see there. Here's the ability baseline. So what I've just talked about, the Yellis score, vocab and math score combined comes out with a, if you want, most likely grade, what students have got in the past. So for this student, here's their most likely grades, even down to a 10th. You can't score a 10th in the exam, but it's just a piece of data. That's why you can go halfway in between a grade here. Now, what we've asked students to do in the last couple of years, and students love doing it, we get some great feedback about this, it gives them some ownership of their grades, is they come up with a target grade. They can look at this, and a lot of them do, and this is really where they should be aiming for, even higher. But if they think, for example, this student does Spanish, well, I love Spanish and I love the whole culture, so I'm going to go not really going to pay much attention to my baseline ability grade. I think I can get a higher mark. And we encourage the students to be aspirational. But if they're going to put down an A or an A star or a level 9, the top level on the number grades, then we're going to ask them, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do to reach that target? So this is a target for them. It's important to set a target which you can aim towards, a vision for where you're going towards. So I'll come back to that page in a minute. One thing I need to mention is that in GCSE, we do 2 different exam boards. One's a UK-based exam board, which is Edexcel, and actually 2, we've got Edexcel and some AQA, and the other one is Cambridge, which is an international exam board. Cambridge International still insist on using the old A-star to G grades because they say their schools prefer that way of grading. But because we use a mix, it can be a bit confusing. So I've introduced this chart here where you can compare the old way of doing things, A-star to G, with a new grading system of numbers. So you're going to get a mix depending whether the subject is Edexcel or Cambridge. Target setting, as I say, I've been through this really, that students, the research shows involving students more in their grading has a massively large positive effect on scores. This is our new way of grading, or slightly adapted to what we did last year. I need to spend a little bit of time going through it. Is that we've got target setting going on. I've just talked about the target setting deadline is actually the end of this week for year 10 students. But I think most students have already set their target grades, so they like actually setting their target grades. 2 other things I need to talk about are feedback cycles. So we've introduced this year 6 feedback cycles into the 2-year course. So there'll be around about half a term or 2/3 of a term, a feedback cycle. What we say in a feedback cycle is that in each subject, there must be some kind of assessment within that feedback cycle. There could be 2 or 3 assessments, but there must be at least 1 assessment. And there must be some feedback given to the students, some individual feedback, either verbal or written feedback on that assessment during that cycle. From that feedback, we want the students to take in that feedback, all the feedback they've had during the assessment cycle, and come up with an action plan in that subject. The action plans you can view as a parent. So I'll talk more about this in a second. So that's feedback cycles. And also we've asked the teachers, if possible, can you give a grade for the feedback cycle? Some teachers and some subjects don't want to do that because they work on different skills and they haven't worked on grades, so they're just skilling up at this stage. So you may find some subjects haven't given grades for the feedback cycle. But the important grade is the transcript grade. We call it a transcript grade because what happens is, for US universities especially, they will ask for grades in year 10 and 11. So we need to provide the universities with what your children got in year 10 at 2 points in each year, in fact. So the 2 points we're going to use in year 10 is feedback cycle 2. I'll give you the dates in a minute, and feedback cycle 4. At the end of those cycles, whatever grade is on the transcript grade will be used if your child goes to a US university in 4 years' time, if they're applying there. So in two is January, 4 is June, and 6 is January next year in year 11. And of course, the final, that will be the mock exam grade. 6 will be the mock exam grade that you get. So those grades will go on there, as well as what we call the university application grade. The feedback cycles, I've got written them all down there. So I say you'll get this so you can see when they are. So this diagram is really the key to everything. So learning is particularly effective, not by just sitting and listening and taking information and going revision. What you have to do during the learning process, the student's role in this is central. And I really believe that children need to ask questions. They need to seek feedback. They need to look, they need to review what they've done in their assessments. And as well as getting the feedback the teacher will naturally give, they need to say, oh, I'm not really sure about that. Can you tell me more about that? And the students in my teaching many, many years, and the students in my experience who do this really, really do well. But it's those students who are taking responsibility for their own learning. So they take the information from the teacher and they'll write an action plan. They'll write a very, very thorough action plan. And with the help of our tutors as well, is we'll talk to the students about their action plans and how they're getting on with the action plan. So the cycle goes, so you develop success criteria. This is your, if you like, your target setting area, where you're going to go. This is getting the evidence in the assessments and interpreting the evidence, getting your feedback, and then take responsive action. This is their student action plan for each subject, what you're going to do in each subject. And parents ask me most things, how can we help? What can we do to help? So work with your child on their action plans. Say, what action are you going to do in maths? What action are you going to do in science? Where's your action plan? How are you going to do that? I'll speak more about that in a minute. Okay, so you can see back to this page here. So there's a tutor student's target grade, transcript grade, which is the important one, especially starting in January in year 10. So at the moment, some subjects won't have put these in because they don't feel there's enough information to predict what they think the students are going to get in the end. So a transcript grade is effectively what the teacher thinks your child will get at the end of the course on the information they have already on their current progress. So by January, this will be all populated and this will be what's on transcripts. You will get 6 feedback cycles. Here's the first one in here now. Sometimes subjects like food technology, they haven't given a grade here because they don't feel it's appropriate yet to give a grade. But there will be, in a lot of subjects, they would have done an assessment and this is the grade that they would have given in this feedback cycle. A lot of transcript grades and feedback cycle grades will match, obviously, because it's the only major assessment that your children have had up until now. You can see this Spanish here said, yeah, they got 7 in the feedback cycle, but we haven't really done enough assessment to predict what we think they're going to get at the end of the course. Yeah, so this is the target grades. I really want you to work with your children. If you've got time, go into Wisdom, have a look at what they're doing now with their action plans. That's really where the responsibility of the student lies, in writing these action plans and seeking feedback and using the feedback they've had. Because we get a lot of feedback from teachers, but it's just forgotten because it's said verbally. The student hasn't written it down, and there's because a lot of times we don't work with books, any exercise books anymore. It's a lot of it's done online, so there's a lot of different mediums that the students are interacting with, and so the feedback can get lost. So we're asking the responsibility of the student to take all of that feedback and put it into these action plans. Keep on working with these of the students. This is what you can do as a parent to help us out here, talk about the action plans, which you can view on Wisdom as well. Okay, just one more thing to talk about, which is the self-management skills. You'll see that on here, you've got self-management skills. This student here has got all green for their self-management. This is at the start of the year, so what it defaults to at the start of the year is everyone gets green stars for their self-management, and then the teacher will turn it off when they realize that the students maybe aren't bringing in equipment. So here's all the things that you get: self-management, arriving lessons on time, necessary equipment, organization, avoid distractions and procrastination, and these two here. This student in design technology has these two stars turned off. So you can see how your child is getting on with these self-management skills, which are oh so important. And we transfer those into what's called a radar diagram here, and we will do different lines at the end of each term, so you can see how your child has progressed with these self-management skills. Yeah, so it looks something like that. And this really is responding to a lot of the questions I've had from you saying, how can we help, or where can we find resources to help with revision skills? Well, this website here has been shared with your children. It's Year 10 and 11 exams website or revision website. And it's got lots of advice for students, parents, so all the subjects in there, which contains a syllabus and some past papers. This is apart from what the websites that subjects do themselves or on Google Classroom as well. There's lots of information, syllabuses and past papers, which are given out. But here is just a kind of general skills, and all the syllabus is really for you, because it should be, I think, all of the subjects have given out the syllabuses through kind of Google Classroom already. But if you want to find them, or if your child doesn't know where the syllabus is, then it will be under subjects here. If Steve, you can put that link as well into the chat there, but also you'll get an email tomorrow with these links on along with this presentation. Do have a look through there. Some great advice. It's been built up over several years, so there's a lot of work gone into that. Right, Steve, and if James is still there, if you want to pop back.
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much. So I've been answering a few questions in the background. There's a few that got sent in before, and I think the main ones are just about helping children to prepare for their GCSEs. So again, just to reiterate the advice that Mike's given on here, that is really talk with your kids, find out where they're, how they're engaging with their action plans. Check in with them with those action plans, and then again use the revision website, work with them in terms of how they're structuring that, and think about the conversations they're having with their teachers. I think Mike's answered most of the other ones around summaries and chances charts and the different kind of things that go into building up this data. So it just leaves me to say thank you again for giving up your time this evening to come and listen to us. Oh, there's one that's just in the Q&A in the chat now. Mike, a question: what's the difference between transcript and feedback grades? Maybe you could answer that one just quickly.
Yeah, we had the same question today from teachers, so don't worry. We've been playing around with grading, and it's hard to get it exactly right, but it's a very good question. So imagine when your child goes to university in 4 years' time. You wouldn't want a grade on that university transcript because the university's asked for it, right? So you're not going to want a grade in there which came from one particular test that happened back in year 10, November time, when maybe your child was new to school and they were just finding their feet. So the feedback cycle grade is just how they're getting on at the moment. What did they do in that assessment, or groups of, or assessments they did within that period? The transcript grade talks more about what does the teacher think that the student will get, or your child will get, at the end of the course. So we're kind of predicting to the end of the course. If we need a grade, because you need to know as a parent, yeah, okay, my child's getting a level 6, but what does that mean? Does that mean they get a level 6 at the end? Well, no, because maybe they haven't got developed the skills yet that they need to get a good score in exams. So they could be getting a level 6 at the start of year 10, and then that could be a level 9 at the end of year 11. So the feedback cycle grade is currently what they're getting in that particular cycle, where the transcript grade is what the teacher thinks they're going to get at the end. Now, that's a hard thing to do on limited information at the start of year 10. So this is why it takes a little bit of time to get more assessment information, know more about your children. And then that's by January, they can think, I think this child will get a level 8 by the end of the course. Did that explain it, Steve?
It explained it to me because we had this conversation about 2 hours ago. Hopefully it explains it to the parents too. So if there are any more questions, please feel free, send me an email. Like I said, talk to your children, talk to your children's teachers as well. Feel free to fire them emails and ask some questions if there's something that you're not sure about, particularly if you look in the revision website and it's something around the syllabus you've maybe got questions on.
Yeah,
So
just on that, Steve, we did get a couple of questions through, particularly about English and maths. The best people to ask those questions are the head of English or maths, or your child's teachers. They know all that information. So just email the child's teacher or the head of the subject, because they'll give you a much better answer than we can.
yeah, so I'll just put the head of maths and head of English's email in the chat just quickly now, so that's available for everyone. So that's Ian Benji, he's the head of maths, and trying to do this very quickly.
It's a long name.
It's a long name, yeah, hard to spell. And Fiona Mulholland, who is our head of English. So again, if you want to ask them a little bit more questions about that, you can. Mike, I think that's everything. You
Great
promised
stuff.
half an hour. It's been 41 minutes, so thank you, parents. And
thank you for turning up tonight. I know there's over 100 of you involved. We managed to keep from 102. I think we've kept 80 now. So well done. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.